Currently in Kansas, I work with Quest Analytics, and my current role is Lead SQA Automation Engineer. So here at Quest, I am the first QA person that got hired, and I have a team that I just started with. Hiring, and then we are a team of 4 members right now, where I hired everybody and then onboarded everybody on the team. So just getting into a little bit more detailed about my business requirements and technology stack. We don't have any business analyst for this. I mean, not in the company. So we don't have any business analyst, and every business requirements are just on the fly. So there's no absolute requirements that really needed for testing. I sometimes have to jump in, wear the multiple hats in the agile team to write the business requirements, or go back to the developer or the project manager to ask about the details about the particular work item so that I can get it testing. And how many teams I support. So right now I work with 4 teams. As I transition and then mentor another QA person on the team, I assign it to them and move on to the next one. That's how it has been so far. And the technology stack right now is a lot of manual testing. We use Azure for the CI/CD, Azure DevOps for the project tracking, and test plan manager within Azure for like the manual testing and the test documentation, including the test plans and test cases, and also the execution. And for automation, I'm currently using Cypress because our front end is JavaScript and Angular, so that is what I'm using for the web app development. But very recently we have a new requirement that came in where we have to fill in for or start doing automation for a web application as well, or sorry, for a desktop application as well. So that's the reason why I went through a few different tools which could fit in the best for our solution, and then came up with Test Complete, which is a paid license tool that we use for testing web as well as desktop as well as API at this point, and then also work on the CI/CD of being it Test Complete or Cypress that designed the YAML file so that it can kick off every time I commit my code or scheduled it daily to run. So that's pretty much the technology stack here that I use. So it depends on what type of test plan I am writing. The first go-to whenever I'm trying to test for a release would be, if I stack it like backwards, it would be smoke testing the day of production release in prod. And then a step down to it would be regression testing. That would be in any of the lower environment suite integration or UAT testing platform. And then a step below it would be my regular sprint testing, which would be the tickets that I test, as well as any other functional testing changes that have been. So in every test plan, I have all the test cases. Say for example, let's talk about the regression test plan. I have all the test cases that will cover the full application regression testing. So far, plan it in smaller test cases so that it is easily tested, and then have them all sorted in my test plan. And documentation for it would be again like executing the test plan, pass or fail. Wherever it fails, I try to open a bug using. Currently it is fairly easy because I use the Azure test plan manager for it. So that's what I've been doing. So the cost of finding defects ahead of time could obviously reduce the cost of the project, because we're talking about more of the shift left testing, where while the developer is actively developing, the QAs are writing their test plans and getting it tested, so that we don't have to wait till like a week later till it gets deployed into SIT, which is again time is money these days. And then also if it has like fixed deadlines that you gotta meet, again that has money in it, included in it. So the earlier that you can get into the development life cycle, wherever testing can be introduced, is a point where you can actually try finding the defects way ahead of time, which is trying to save time, and then that directly impacts the cost of the project in agile. So that's my primary focus right now, and that has always been working. And I think the industry is also moving towards the shift left approach, where you're trying to test as soon as the ticket moves from in development to development complete, and the QA picks it up, and then start testing within the same sprint. Previously I did like a week delayed sprints, and we still do that for projects that are not too high priority, but I think doing the shift left testing. Yes, I am responsible for code reviews in the team. One thing is we'll make sure that it is acceptable, because now that we have 4 team members that are doing the test automation, working on 4 different teams. First thing is being aware of what's going on in the other teams, and then also because everybody is working on a single application, even though there are 4 different agile teams, we just want to make sure if it's not breaking any other element that has not been touched in my code. Like say for example somebody else is working on a code and they touched their code, but it could be impacting my code. So that would be the other thing that we are as a checklist that I try to put in while I'm approving the test automation. The other thing is the test standards. If you usually I came up with the test standards, and then everybody agreed to it as a team. So that's what we kind of have as a checklist in the code review. And again, if there's any kind of merge conflicts that are completely resolved within the code. And then one other thing that you shouldn't forget is, like say for an example, one of the team member kind of like deletes something by mistake. So it's very easy when you're doing a code review where it's highlighted in red. You kind of go through it and see why it's got deleted, and then suddenly you remember that it actually really tests a particular functionality in the application, and we don't want to. So that's another checklist, and it happened to me previously too. So that these are the 5 steps that I do in my code review. It is not really looking like trying to look over somebody else's code, but just having a clean and you're not running into any issues kind of code review. When I was at my previous company, I used primarily Selenium, WebDriver, and Java for most of the UI automation, and then I used JUnit for as the test annotation. Primarily use TestNG, but again, I was a first QA, and then I had to do my own thing. But that was a major obstacle on how I started with TestNG, started writing my test framework. But then I didn't want to just keep it in the black hole of just me doing the automation and then me working on it. So I kind of gave a demo to the team and the developers. So they told me that it would be nice if you are on same page as the developer, so that being in an agile team, the developers can chime in and then do the automation as needed for their own testing purposes, not that they are filling in for me. But they said you have to be like if you try to be on JUnit. So that was a major obstacle for me to switch from TestNG to JUnit. It took a while, just a time constraint, but once I was in the process of moving all my test annotation or test framework, and especially using the JUnit libraries to and moving them to JUnit from TestNG, that was a little bit obstacle. And then how I resolved it is there's a lot of open source community resources that you can find these days, and though TestNG and JUnit are 2 different test annotations, there is a similarity between both. So that definitely helped. And so that was another reason that it helped me make that switch easily. And then I tried to learn it, and that was my contribution, try to do it. Yes, I've written a test framework right from the scratch. If we are talking about my previous company at NAIC, I was the first QA person who started with Selenium. Like I've said, initially, I had to learn, I had to pick it up. There were training sessions that my previous company provided, like Selenium 101. I think it was taken by Source Lab. So we had to if I look back to my code that I first written, like very unstructured language of code, and then from there I came to a structured and a page object model, and then using more of the OOPS concept of methods and classes, and then inheritance from different pages, especially in the page object model, and then progress towards building a pipeline, and then having Jenkins pipeline, and then again moved from Jenkins to GitLab. So had to learn on how to write the YAML files in GitLab, and then again it was not just my own pipeline, but it was integrated with the developers. So there were some issues with that, because we didn't want the code product release to hold off just because my tests were failing. So I had to write another smoke test plan that was just particular to it was integrated to the developer's build, so that it can be automatically kicked off as soon as the developer pushes code in development environment, where my regression tests are quick, and if everything passes, then it goes to prod, and then that's where my smoke test plans are kicked off, instead of having the entire regression test plan in being tested in prod. So that's the test framework if you're talking to Selenium. But right now I am currently doing Cypress and Test Complete, like I previously mentioned. So for Cypress, it was fairly simple, because it was in it had everything that came with the Node npm, and I used Visual Studio for it. And then also because the front end of my application that I was testing was JavaScript, that was another reason why I chose Cypress. I did my background research on what automation framework kind of fits in my current company when they first hired me, and that's how I came up with Cypress. I was fairly quick at developing an automation framework that was in Cypress, and also not just developing an automation frameworks from scratch, but I also did the CI/CD using Azure DevOps, and currently I'm doing Test Complete just for the desktop application, and then integrating it with DevOps as well. So these are my different automation experience that I developed from the scratch. So currently I'm in this busy phase of life where I am a mom of two toddlers. One is 3.5. I don't know if you really call him a toddler at 3.5, but that very energetic toddler. And then my youngest is going to turn 2 this month. So I don't know if I can call it hobbies or interests, but I'm pretty occupied with my kids at this point. And then also, just to keep myself busy, I am a food blogger, so I have food blogging, and then recently started doing some homeschooling activities for my kids, which I put it up on my Instagram. And apart from that, me and my husband, before the pandemic times, really loved hanging out at new restaurants, trying new cuisines. So that was one kind of happy thing to do over the weekends, which we surely miss for right now. But and again, apart from that, what else do I do? I am a Carnatic music singer, and I love dance, and we have quite a few get-togethers over the weekends with friends. We love hanging out with our friends and entertaining and hosting. So a lot of people kind of person and social gathering, which the pandemic kind of broke it down to just staying at home with the kids right now. So should I say kids? Whatever to make the kids or to keep the kids happy is like the current hobby right now. Yes, I confirm you may use this video for hiring and evaluation purposes.